existing prenatal vaccines would provide protection against this
Well,
virus.
yeah, I definitely did it. I remember. Yeah. You were a star.
Circular.
We light this candle, acknowledging the fear many are feeling, especially in California. Smashing Rombough and retail stores. May such lawlessness cease and its perpetrators brought to justice. Randy and Amy crafting light this candle for their friend Cindy Wood and Big Chris Sangi, whose home in New Orleans burned out last week. For 40 years owning Ron's Lounge, they created a community anchor that has fed us, loved us, inspired us, and celebrated us. Whether you're regular or music lover or only visited one time, Cindy and Big Chris always considered you family. Randy invites all to go to their GoFundMe account and to tune in today for a fundraising concert from 1 to 7 p.m. Prayers for them as they rebuild their homes. And I'd like to light a candle from Gibson as she recovers from elbow surgery. To sit in farms in a dull, dark, and Westwood prison with a lifelong lock, awaiting the sensation of cheap and chippy chocolate on the cake.
All right. If I don't know by now, I'm not gonna know.
I guess, right?
I think it does matter.
How are you?
Oh, can't complain. I'm doing great.
Good.
No, to answer your question, I don't think it matters. Okay, answer your question, I don't think it matters.
after the time for all ages. For some reason, this is not completely correct. All right? Thank you for pointing that out. This should have been up a little bit earlier. So as soon as they've done the time for all ages, you know, you would go up there. And Dan's sitting where, Dan? You should sit. You're a liturgist, right? Yes, sir. So normally I have the liturgist and the preacher sit over there with the prayer leader and other guests here. In fact,
One of you,
you
Laura.
sit here, because I'm going to be in the drum set most of the time. All right? Is that all right? All right, let's gather for
Should I stay up on the chancel for the whole service?
That's up to you. We'll ask that question when we assemble. So Amy and Charles and Glenn and Michael, if you'd like to join us briefly for
Here it is.
a gathering.
What? Time for ages.
And I'm going to put this back up here because I took this far away. That's me.
Not everything's over there.
I took votes
like club.
Got it.
All right. So we can't hide behind the screen today. But come and join us if you can, Marcia. There. Put your hands in like it's a huddle. I hope that's not so. It's been an interesting week. All right, let's pray. Breathe deeply. Breathe deeply again, so not letting you grab your shoes. And exhale. So many times we forget what a privilege it is to breathe fresh air. To know that we are alive in ways that are meaningful and simple. And what a gift it is to be here with this amazing group of volunteers. And Kate, who's here to offer worship to this beloved community. Can't tell you how much I am moved that we're really putting on quite a service this weekend. Too many of my church colleagues, I feel, treat this as a Sunday, and let some of the standards not be all. It's really looking forward. It's amazing that we play music, pray, hear the word. These are the words of our mouths and the meditation of our hearts. The emanations of our spirits give a great night to accomplish the mission that we've chosen for us. Amen.
Amen.
So, I think the bar should be there. Can you be here?
There.
Sure, that might be. Picture liturgist. Mike stays on except when and the person before you is
I'll
going to
give
be
you the
Kate.
signal. I don't have anything here.
And Kate, I bet the mic should be here. Shot clock says 5 minutes pray time. Pray ball, there you go. Pray ball. Like that.
So should I stay up?
Good morning. My name is Michael Gilch. My pronouns are he, him, and his. And welcome to the Unitarian Universalist congregation at Montclair. We're glad you're here with us in the sanctuary this morning or joining us online. A reminder, if you are here in the sanctuary, to please turn your cell phones on silent, and please make sure that they're off the Wi-Fi, as it can bog down our bandwidth and harsh the vibe of those streaming online. Our COVID return guidelines ask that you not sing, but instead hum along with our hymn leaders today. And speaking of our hymn leaders today, we have Amy Brabson and Charles Loflin leading us in song, as well as Glenn Rombough in song and on guitar. Thank you, Glenn. Please join us for our opening hymn, Touch the Earth, Reach the Sky, number 301, and stand. Join us in our second hymn, Let Us Break Bread Together, number 406.
Let Whoever you are, wherever you come from, whatever age, ability, history, identity, gender, or sexual orientation, you are welcome to bring your full self here. My name is Dan Silver. My pronouns are he, him, and his. Grounded in faith, we come together to nurture the soul, inspire hope, and bring into being a more just and loving world. Joining us to offer pastoral support today from our pastoral care team for the virtual service is Joel. Joel will introduce himself in the chat. For our in-person service, Marcia is here from our pastoral care team. Marcia is here. Please, Marcia, wave so people can see where you are. Our COVID protocols include social distancing and that we be masked and, as possible, vaxxed. There's a special place reserved in our sanctuary for any families with young children that have yet to be vaxxed. And we have restricted congregational singing, asking instead that we hum along while our hymn leaders sing. Connection Cafe will follow our service virtually via Zoom and in our multi-platform from our Alliance Room back there at 11:30. We welcome Judy Reinierson now to do this quick reminder of the UU Review. Hop on up.
Hi, everyone. It's great to see you. You all may remember that just 3 weeks ago I was up here with my Grateful Dead t-shirt reminding everyone about our new UU Review, where we invited the special events team, invited you to share your joy. And I'm delighted to tell you that we have so much joy in this community. We've got plenty of submissions, and we are going to be presenting the first UU Review live this coming Friday on Zoom at 6 to 7 p.m. Be there or be square. And keep an eye out for the Zoom link so that you can all enjoy. This will be really fun. Thanks.
No problem. In her irrational exuberance and joy, Judy has totally messed up today's service. Whew. Okay. Please see your This Week at UUCM bulletin for other important information. And now we welcome Kate Conroy for our Mantle of Giving. Kate.
Good morning. My name is Kate Conroy. My pronouns are she, her, and hers. As many of you know, each year we partner with a school in downtown Newark to bring some holiday cheer to the children there. This year we're again working with the Dr. William H. Horton School, which has a population of about 700 kids. Of those 700, we're hoping to sponsor about 200. In a normal year, each child is asked to put 3 wishes on an ornament, and we ask our congregants to sponsor a child or 2, or sometimes 3, and at a minimum grant one of the wishes as well as give them a book on the list provided. Unfortunately, we haven't had a normal year since COVID-19 entered our lives. Last year we donated virtually, and this year we're asking you to do the same. We've created a general wish list, which you can access on the UUCM website, and we ask that you be as generous as you feel able by sending at least 1 book and 1 gift. There are flyers here this morning to help guide the way, but if you have questions, please feel free to reach out to the Revs or me directly. This is a really easy way for us to continue the work we do in the inner city. There are some kids in this group who will not have a Christmas or holiday at all except for the one we give them. I'll be in the narthex after the service with info and to help answer questions. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Kate. Ours is a covenantal community. When we come together, it is understood that while we may not necessarily share common beliefs, we do share a common covenant, a commitment to come together in service to the beloved community. Let's light our chalice as our chalice lighting affirmation is shared. Let us open our senses to take in the beauty. Let us open our minds to learn what is true. Let us open our hearts to love one another. Now our time for all ages story. The poet, philosopher, writer, thinker, Amira Baraka is one of the challengers. He spoke here in the pulpit in 1971. He spoke about power, about oppression, about politics, and about culture. He demanded much of us. His dream was of a world dismantled until equity could be achieved.
Let no love poems exist until love can exist freely and cleanly.
He asked us to dismantle racist systems and build a better world. We heard him. That was 50 years ago. 31 years ago, in 1980, Amira Baraka also said this.
Anti-Semitism is as ugly an idea and as deadly as white racism and Zionism. As for my personal trek through the wasteland of anti-Semitism, it was momentary and never completely real. I have written only one poem that has definite aspects of anti-Semitism, and I have repudiated it as thoroughly as I can.
I have read the poem he refers to, and his later poetry that he defends as anti-Zionist and still not anti-Jew. They are painful to read. They hurt. But tonight is the first night of Hanukkah. It commemorates a time when the people of Israel were oppressed, forced to accept Greek culture and beliefs instead of the mitzvah observance and the belief in God.
Let no love poems exist until love can exist freely and cleanly.
Against all odds, a small band of faithful but poorly armed Jews, led by Judah the Maccabee, defeated one of the mightiest armies on earth, drove the Greeks from the land, reclaimed the Holy Temple in Jerusalem, and redacted it to the service of God. When they sought to light the temple's menorah, the seven-branch candelabrum, they found only a single cruse of olive oil that had escaped contamination by the Greeks. Miraculously, they lit the menorah, and the 1 day of supply of oil lasted for 8 days. This feels complicated, these two ideas existing together, but I think it can be simple.
And now each night I count the stars, and each night I get the same number. And when they will not come to be counted, when they will not come to be counted,
I count the holes they leave. And then last night I tiptoed to my daughter's room and heard her talking to someone. And when I opened the door, there was no one there. Only she on her knees, peeking into her own clasped hands. We would be wise to remember that every revolution is the same revolution, that the flame that burns for the people is one beloved flame, that will not be snuffed just because the oil is out, just because mighty systems stand before us and demand that we tremble. The belief in that flame is what it means to hope. Hanukkah, Festival of Lights, calls us to hope. And this man, Amira Baraka, imperfect but stretching towards the light, calls us to hope. And hope we must.
am Marcia Mandel, she, her, hers, a member of our pastoral care team, and it is my honor to share today's remembrances. Called to find depth in our days and discover reverence in this hour, we seek a gentle meditation, a focused reflection, and ardent prayer, each as we are called, and yet still all together. And we enter into this space by hearing the lamentations, the requests, and the remembrances of our community. Let us hear one another to heal one another. We light this first candle for the people of Waukesha, Wisconsin, whose town was torn up last Sunday by violence when a man drove his vehicle through a Christmas parade, killing several and injuring dozens. A candle for peace and memory. We light this candle of concern for our world as we learn of yet another coronavirus variant. We pray existing treatments and vaccines will provide protection against this latest threat to our health and livelihood. We light this candle acknowledging the fear many are feeling, especially in California, about smash and grab robberies in retail stores. May such lawlessness cease and its perpetrators brought to justice. Randy and Amy Crafton light this candle for their friends Cindy Wood and Big Chris Songi, whose home in New Orleans burned down last week. For 40 years, owning Vaughn's Lounge, they created a community anchor that has fed us, laughed with us, cried with us, and celebrated with us. Whether you're a regular, a music lover, or only visited one time, Cindy and Big Chris always considered you family. Randy invites all to go to their GoFundMe account and to tune in today for a fundraising concert from 1 to 7 p.m. Prayers for them as they rebuild their home. I would like to light a candle for my wife, Elaine Gibson, a candle of recovery and fast healing for recent elbow surgery that she had. She has a long road to PT and getting back to being able to use that right arm. And we light this final candle for the joys and sorrows that are deeply felt but have been left unspoken. May we hold this silence as this silence holds us. May our listening inspire acts of love.
Good morning. I bring greetings from Reverend Anya, who is home for a much-needed day off. I am Reverend Scott Samler Michael, co-minister here with Reverend Anya, he, him. I will share a prayer that will include, among other things, some words from Robert Fripp, guitar virtuoso and philosopher. So I invite you now to join me in prayer as you are so called. Spirit of life, known in so many ways, by so many names. Power of love that forms the very core of our beings. Here we are, and we begin where we are. So where are we? Perhaps as difficult as it might be to admit, we are where we need to be. This is the good news, that all the activities, events, and circumstances of our life have brought us to this point. This is where we are. So even if we need to be elsewhere, knowing we are here now, will help us move with grace and intention. This morning we gather with so many things on our minds, so many conflicting emotions. Joy of family, needs unmet, loneliness, heartbreak, fear, sickness. We pray we can be present to our lives as they are and as we are. As we summon the courage and the strength to transform our lives into what they can be. We gather this morning to remind ourselves that despair must not have the last word in our lives or in our hearts. We hope that all have found reasons to be grateful this Thanksgiving season, found ways to express that gratitude. But for those whose lives do not always offer reasons for thanks, whose situations might prevent them from seeing the gifts around them or from indeed receiving gifts at all, we pray that their paths can be eased, that joy be found, peace of mind restored. And whether we plead on our feet or on our knees, we reach for the sky and the great hope that there is more love somewhere, a love which will help us hold on, if just for a little while longer. In the name of all that each of us deems holy within our hearts, we pray this morning. Amen. Today's prayer response comes to us from African American Fraternity Life, and it was shared with Reverend Anya and I by our good friend and colleague, Reverend John Cresswell.
Pray on.
Thank you, guys. That was really beautiful. For those of you who don't believe that 1 + 1 can equal 3, I think that last verse just disproved that. We hold in our hope in gratitude and in giving. 80% of what you offer will care for our congregation, and 20% will support our October and November recipient, Perinatal Equity Foundation. The Perinatal Health Equity Initiative eliminates healthcare disparities in Black infant and maternal health. Founded by Dr. Nastasia Davis, this nonprofit empowers Black and brown women and their children in Essex County and New Jersey through advocacy, education, and research. You can text your UUCM plate and your amount to 73256 to give to us. Mail us a check with Perinatal Equity Foundation in the memo, or simply place your gift in the offering basket. Ushers, would you please come forward? All your gifts are worthy, and they are all received with love. Thank you. Our reading is a poem by the contemporary Polish poet Adam Zagajewski, to try to praise the mutilated world. Try to praise the mutilated world. Remember June's long days and wild strawberries, drops of rosé wine, the nettles that methodically overgrow the abandoned homesteads of exiles. You must praise the mutilated world. You watch the stylish yachts and ships. One of them had a long trip ahead of it, while salty oblivion awaited others. You've seen the refugees going nowhere. You've heard the executioners sing joyfully. You should praise the mutilated world. Remember the moments when we were together in a white room and the curtain fluttered. Return in thought to the concert where music flared. You gathered acorns in the park in autumn, and leaves eddied over the earth's scars. Praise the mutilated world, and the gray feathers of a thrush lost, and the gentle light that strays and vanishes and returns.
They said all my favorite people are broken. Thank you for that. I'm Laura Anthony. I use all pronouns, particularly they and them. It is profoundly good to see you. So in August of 2021, we received some catastrophic news. Remember? 3 months ago. That's not that long ago. You remember. It was like a huge deal. Got handed down by the United Nations. It was a giant global catastrophe. Okay, so I see. I think there's some confusion here. It's been a long 2 years or so, so I feel like you're trying to pinpoint which giant global catastrophe I'm referring to. Well, thank you. Well, mid-August, a report was released by an intergovernmental panel from the UN that sort of shifted the tone of how we talk about the climate crisis. So a decade or so ago, we, or your average citizen, discussed global warming as a thing that would happen unless we fixed our wagon or abandoned it in favor of a more fuel-efficient and electric wagon. And now, according to the UN, with their 6th assessment report, we can no longer think of climate change as something future tense, something that might happen. The climate crisis is happening. Those decisions that we were supposed to make to slow the deadly march of global warming, we made them, and we made them wrong. Or someone did. I wasn't really voting then, but now if you're under 40 and alive today, you will live an unprecedented life, witness to weather-related wildfires, floods, hurricanes and heat waves, crop failures and droughts. You and I will watch the oceans turn to acid. That will just happen. There is cause for despair. And yet I find myself often thinking of Rubem Alves, a founder of liberation theology, a synthesis of Christian theology and socioeconomic analysis based on leftist politics. Or put more plainly, Alves dared to imagine the teachings of Christ as teachings that were anti-oppression, anti-poverty, that were anti-state violence. Go figure. There was a military coup in Brazil, right, as he was making a name for himself in 1964. They went hunting for communists, had their very own Red Scare, and the Presbyterian Church of Brazil gave up the names of 6 intellectuals, sending Alves into hiding. And as he hid, more than 40 accusations were made against him, condemning him not only as a communist, but as a heretic, and not just any heretic, but one funded by the Soviet Union. He eventually fled, studying in the United States until it was safe to return to his homeland. And while he was one of the most revolutionary liberal religious thinkers of his time, he's often forgotten in conversations about liberation and theology, despite being a pioneer of the movement. He writes, "Let us plant dates, even though those who plant them will never eat them. We must live by the love of what we will never see. This is the secret discipline. It is the refusal to let the creative act be dissolved in immediate sense experience, and a stubborn commitment to the future of our grandchildren." Pretty impressive for somebody accused of being a Soviet heretic by a giant government regime, bent on quieting him. We must live by the love of what we will never see. But how? Here, together, when things have never seemed quite so bleak, according to the UN, what do we do? How do we keep planting dates when we can't be sure that the soil that holds them will be here in a decade? Well, there's that old Hanukkah story from before. Less concerned with dates and more concerned with olive oil, but the point is still grounded in hope, in a simple action as revolution. Antiochus, ruler of the Syrians, went on a crusade to quash Judaism from his whole empire. And as he marched on Jerusalem and sacked the city, outlawed the religion, Greek soldiers went to the temple and spilled swine's blood on the altar. They erected an idol on it and stole the golden menorah. They desecrated every jar of oil in the temple, but somehow just one was kept pure. What would be the answer of despair? Despair argues that if the oceans are going to rise, maybe all we can do is sit down in the sand and wait. Despair says that if there was only one jar of oil and the menorah was gone, what's the point of trying to get the altar lit? But still, that's not the end of the Hanukkah story, of course. One jar of oil stays lit for 8 days and 8 dark cloaked nights until they are able to get more, and that is the miracle. That is knowing that a bright lit future looks nigh impossible, and despite that, gathering what we do have around us and turning on the light and praying that it lasts. But maybe, if you've come to the U, you have come to this room by way of a certain skepticism around miracles and legends. Maybe you find looking to ancient texts for allegories about how to live to be a bit less than pragmatic, or maybe even a bit tired. After all, in some ways, doesn't it sound like what I'm saying to you is just have faith, just believe? I am not. I am not encouraging the belief that a miracle will save us. I only point out that despair absolutely will not. Despair has never once lowered carbon emissions. I am not being cute when I say this. It's factual. Expert scientists in the field of climate change communication, have concluded that fear, it just doesn't motivate people to change, right? Eric Holthaus, meteorologist and journalist covering climate science, sums up saying, researchers have found that trying to scare people into action usually backfires. Presented with the idea that the planet that gives us life might be dying, parts of our brain just shut down. We are unable to think logically. Our brain's limbic system is hardwired to prioritize these kinds of threats, so we just shift into fight or flight mode. And because the odds look stacked against us, most choose to flee. If anything, strategies like this make the problem worse. They take people willing to read something or take in something that discusses the depth of the climate crisis and essentially removes them from a pool of people working on real-world solutions. And it's understandable, right? This fatalism that we're given into and the danger of it. Because what do you do if you're told the problem is unsolvable? You just stop trying to solve it. We cannot stop trying to solve it. Human beings, after all, are kind of problem-solving machines, right? Like, that's kind of what got us into this mess in the first place. Imagine if we saved our own lives with all the problem-solving force of the Industrial Revolution. Phrase like that, it sounds almost possible. Because it is possible. It's possible for us on scale to see what we're hurtling towards and make a commitment to making the switch to electric technology, to lobby our policymakers into pursuing the massive reductions necessary, to consume in practical and sustainable ways, to act with hope rather than fear and despondency. And the science backs us up on hope here too, because according to numerous studies, people who make intentional choices and become more personally engaged and invested in the problem become better citizens, more informed voters, better advocates for systemic change that we need. We are changed just by moving with hope, with belief. But there is no future unless we decide there is. If we don't act as though the light will stay on. Okay, so I know what you're thinking. And sure, I have been accused in the past of wearing rose-colored glasses, and that's fair. But I don't know that anyone is immune from feeling hopeless from time to time. Last week, as I was going through drafts of this, what I came here to say, I lost the definition of hope. I found myself without it entirely. Because the very moment I was doing it, a court of the United States declared that a person who drove across state lines with an assault rifle and the intent to shoot people may use that rifle to maim and kill if he is white. If he is white, and someone can make the defense argument that he was feeling nervous. As I wrote this treatise against despair, once more, someone who has murdered in the public eye walked away from his spate of murders untarnished. And a system that has been designed to oppress and to kill continued to oppress and to kill. And I thought, maybe I can't do this. Maybe I can't say anything that would give you any reason to believe that utter crushing hopelessness is not the correct response. Because it would be rational, right? Like, what I am feeling is rational. What you are feeling is rational. But it is not the answer. It can't be. I didn't rip these pages up, obviously. All right, okay, you got me. I didn't delete the file on my Google Drive. Instead, I went to Cornel West, a Black liberation theologian who has been doing the work of revolution for decades, who seems energized every time I hear his words of justice meaning love in public. That man who said he would die a prisoner of hope. And to me, that sounds better than dying a prisoner of despair. I remembered hearing him speak and the audience reverberating with laughter. I remembered him saying that you have to find joy in the labor, or else you will not make it far. So on that day when I lost the definition of hope, I looked to him trying to understand. Hope, he says, is not spectatorial, it's participatory. You're already in the mess. You're in the funk. What are you going to do? Hope is as much a verb as it is a virtue. Hope is as much a consequence of your action as it is a source of your action. So hope is something you find in the immersion. There just wouldn't be hope without the darkness enshrouding it. It wouldn't be the revolutionary act without anything to revolt from. West talks at length about a graceful, loving response to catastrophe, about Martin Luther King responding to Jim Crow oppression with not revenge, but seeking love and justice. What else could possibly bring a better future? When the system is so utterly broken, what could bring us home aside from the radical defiance of a people seeking justice over revenge? The fact that things look hopeless is the seed, the beginning, the only place where we can possibly find the miracle. It is what comes when we are out of words and out of time. And it's generative. Hopeful action will beget more action endlessly, essentially, because it is the only possible door to the future. It is the thing that sings the tune without the words and never stops at all. It is the action that we take. It is relighting the menorah, though the oil is out, for the blessed future would never have come if it hadn't been lit. My contention is that we might have fallen in with despair. Do not be angry at yourself for that. It's tempting. It hides in shadowy places. It hides in the media's love of clicks, forcing them to sell fear and extremism. It hides deep within your own limbic system. Despair waits. But it isn't generative. It's got nothing to offer. It's the easy answer, the way out of the labor that you and I must do to build a better world. And what I ask is that knowing together that we will watch the oceans turn to acid, knowing that justice will again be denied, you join me in lighting the oil anyhow. And we won't give up on our world, on this world that we must give to the next generations. We won't give in to despair. We will venture endlessly on towards hope. Perhaps that venturing is the miracle of the light we've been waiting for. please join me in our last hymn. There is more love somewhere. That perches in the soul, it sings the tune without the words and never stops at all. And sweetest in the gale is heard, and sore must be the storm that could bash the little bird that kept so many warm. And I've heard it in the chillest land and on the strangest sea, yet never in extremity it asked a crumb of me. Our worship has ended and our service begins.
Worship has ended, and our service begins. Go in peace, go in joy, go in love.
And I invite you all to join us in Fletcher Hall for some conversation in our Modified Connection Cafe. Thank you so much for our tech team, and thank you so much, Laura, for an amazing message today.
That's good. Oh boy!